Well, alrighty, gang, welcome back to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I am yet again your host, Mike Williver, Season 3. This is going to be like episode 30. We're deep into this, and I remain your favorite former Fed, hopefully.
Wilderness Tactical has been around for longer than the gun you're carrying has been, and they have been making high-quality products for concealed carriers for literally decades. I wear their low pro belt every year. The webbing is the best in the industry, and I won't wear anything else. If you're looking for a good CCW belt, check them out.
With me today, a new friend of mine. Her name is Esther. She is in a town, I'll call it west of Seattle, Washington. So she is just outside of the cone of insanity that is the SeaTac Metroplex. And she works in senior care. Esther, how are you?
I'm doing great.
It's very nice to meet you. So she reached out with a story of an encounter, and it was very similar to one that I had. So you get to hear a story from her and me today. So that's a bonus. And we're not going to charge you any extra for it. So
Two in one deal.
Exactly. So you mentioned during our very brief pre-interview, and can you confirm that we don't discuss the incident in depth prior to this interview?
Correct.
Okay, good. I'm not sure if people believe me sometimes, but we did discuss her incident, and I told her very briefly about something happened to me that was very similar. So that should be of interest. And you said that you have relatives that turned you on to the podcast. You'd not heard of it, but someone else told you about it.
Correct. Yes. My brother-in-law, they're very much self-protection aware, and they turned me on to it, and I've been binging it since. So
you've listened to every episode.
Yeah.
So you got to see the progression from the early days when it was.
I did.
Yeah.
And I stayed here. So
it's right. Well, you stuck it out, and I appreciate that. And it's funny because when John and I talked about doing a podcast, I told him I really want to get this as soon as possible. Get it to a level of production that I'll be proud of it. You know, when people go back through the catalog, which you're the first person that said you've done that. Yeah. So it's cool that you get to see that progression. Hopefully it wasn't too much of a leap from the first episode.
I know everybody's got to start somewhere. So,
Right. So you said you have a brother and brother-in-law who are self-defense minded. So before the incident we're going to discuss, were you sort of a self-aware, aware of your surroundings, self-defense oriented person at all? Or how would you describe yourself? How would you characterize yourself?
Well, given the nature of where I live, I was aware that, there's criminals out there. And I had the same mindset that probably everybody does, that, that will never happen to me. But I'm also very practical. And so I'm like, yeah, at the first time you say that, then something happens to you. So I grew up I love to watch people, and you can learn a lot by watching people. And so I got to my head would be on a swivel, and I'd watch people everywhere I went. If there were loud noises one direction, I'd look the opposite direction. And when my brother-in-law entered the family, he started, saying, hey, if you guys go out somewhere, just keep these things in mind. And he just gave a few tips here and there. And I didn't want to become paranoid, but I also don't want to be taken by surprise. And so I would purpose to, just be, to me, just common sense. You park under a light if it's dark outside. You don't, you approach, maybe give a wide circle if something looks a little off. Don't be distracted. Don't have your head down. Make eye contact with people that look suspicious, whatever you need to do. And it was just kind of became second nature to me. So
have you ever had a chance to hear John talk about the rules of stupid? I know you listen to the podcast more than you watch the channel, but have you heard of this or no? Maybe
it sounds familiar, but I don't recall if I heard that one or not.
Yes, I'm sure I'll forget one of them, but the idea is, if you look at the vast majority of our videos, aside from the badge cams, just regular people finding themselves in a bad spot, usually they're violating one of the rules of stupid. And those are don't be doing stupid things with stupid people in stupid places, at stupid times.
Yeah.
There's a reason that I don't generally go out a lot in the evening unnecessarily, once in a while, but after 10 PM, you're, I don't know the numbers, right? I don't have the exact statistics, but you're vastly more likely to be involved in you get hit by a drunk driver or be assaulted or, beaten or robbed or whatever. So avoid the stupid things. And kind of what you were saying a moment ago really mirrors that. Like, just really the common sense thing is just pay attention to your surroundings. That's 90% of it is being aware. And in your story, that actually comes into play. So about how long did your incident happen?
Like the time frame it took?
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, how long ago was it? I'm sorry.
Oh, how long ago? Well, I think I was in my mid 20s, so it's been a long time ago.
So at least 4 years. Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
thanks. We'll go with that.
Okay, and so so you were where and doing what when this happened?
I was at a grocery store late in the evening. It was probably fall winter time because I know it wasn't midnight, but it was dark out. Um, and it was really it was one of those things where I always had told myself, not only is it not fun to shop at night because there's nobody to watch, but I just don't like going out at night that much. Um, but I was on my way home. I needed to make a stop, and I think it was the only grocery store open. But one thing I don't like with most parking lots is their parking lot lights are way too tall. The light disappears by the time it gets down to the level where you can appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
diffused. What you mean?
yeah. And so I was driving our family 15 passenger van, and it's a bus, it's not an easy thing to maneuver.
Real quick, your family has a 15 passenger van.
We did. Yeah.
So are you Mormon or Catholic? I need to. The audience wants to know.
Neither one.
Okay, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Sorry. Poor attempted humor. So you're driving a 15 passenger van. The good news about driving a 15 passenger van is the odds of being carjacked are very low because
Yeah, right. Nobody wants that.
nobody wants that thing. Yeah, exactly. So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So I pulled in, and again, I'd had it. My sister and I talked about it. My brother-in-law had said it, and my brother-in-law had only been part of the family for a handful of years at this point, but we'd had a lot of conversations about just awareness, and so I had thought about, what would I do in a situation? It's not uncommon for me to be out and about on my own any time of day. And being a female, I knew I'm more likely of a target than a guy who's aware of his surroundings. And so I was like, what would I do in a situation? I'm like, it wouldn't happen. But obviously don't think that way because it could.
Right.
So people say, if you feel uncomfortable, go back in the store and ask for security. Well, this grocery store, I had seen their security people, and I could defend myself much better.
Right.
So
So their security is a net liability, is what you're saying to your personal
pretty
safety.
much.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And then also I was like, I never want to be an inconvenience. So, and to me, it was a waste of time. If I felt uncomfortable, then I have to turn all the way around, go all the way back into the store, find somebody, hope they believe me, and then go back out to my car. And by then, no problem. So to me, it's just like, no, if it comes down to it, I want to be prepared with some sort of a plan. But I had hesitated about, I thought, well, I could get self-defense training. I could, carry some way to defend myself, but never really wanted to make that move, mostly because I wasn't sure where to start. And uh, I finally thought it through. And I was like, if I learned like some sort of martial arts of some kind, I don't want somebody to be able to get that close to me, that's
Sure.
what I would have to use. Because if it was a guy, chances are, unless I got the element of surprise, chances are they would be able to overpower me. And I'd rather not get to that point, rather stop them before they get close enough. But again, hadn't really thought it through. And so just more in my mind thought, what would I do if something came up?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get to the grocery store, parking lot's almost empty. I looking around, I'm like, okay, there's some lights around here. Where should I go? So I parked under a light where there were no other cars around, and I didn't have to be in there quick. So I'm like, I'll be in, I'll be out, no problem. Well, I'm coming out, and I see my van. There's no cars around, heading towards it, and I had my keys in my hand. And as I rounded the back of the van, now it's a 15 passenger, but it had like extra long on the back, so you could have a bus behind it and you wouldn't see another car.
Right.
So I rounded behind the car and came to a dead standstill. In time, this all happened very quickly, but in my head, I register car. It's backed into the parking spot. So if I go to my door and unlock, they can open their door and I'd be trapped. There was
Sure.
a guy sitting there. So I'm thinking, okay, car backed in, guy sitting there waiting, clearly hiding behind my van. I do a pivot, come around to the other side, unlock the door. I'm in, leaving the parking lot before I even registered what had just happened.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, it might be nothing, it might be something, but to me, my instinct was this guy was hiding behind my car. He didn't need to park right next to my car. He could
Mhm.
have parked anywhere in the parking lot.